Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. 7 November 8 to 5. And 8 to 5, 7 November, say again. Roger, 7 November, go. Roger, I copied a while ago. 1 Charlie transmission that my thing used. And 8 to 5, this is 7 November, Charlie. 8 to 5, Roger. Now 1 Charlie, 7 November, go.
This is 1 Charlie, in reference to your last, you're Brandon 158 extra box track, 1200 between teams and local. Also request your unit take extra method to see if we can try to get Whiskey 9 and 8 for Bond to the playground.
And this is 7 November, Roger, stand by.
Got that?
Got it? Alright. And all units, this is 7 November Golf. My unit Alpha, Echo, X-ray Alpha Alpha in there.
One Charlie, Alpha Bravo.
Hey, I never took a dip.
Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over. Whiskey 9, go. Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Whiskey 9, Yankee, 7 November Golf, over. Whiskey 9, go. Whiskey 9, 7 November, interrogative Alpha Bravo. Negative Alpha Bravo. And this is 7 November Golf. Roger, request you check your Romeo side. I'll go ahead and check my Tango side. 7 November Golf out. 7 November 8 to 5. And 8 to 5, 7 November, say again. Roger, 7 November, go.
All right, thanks for making it to all 3 channels, 4 channels, including David's, because he's here, and our joint channel, Veterans Daily, between Clay and myself. But it's almost like David is integrating himself in very well. So it is kind of like, I don't know, it's a 3-for-1 deal, right? We are glad you made it here to this live. It is Christmas Eve. For those that celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas to all of you and your families. For those that don't, hey, happy holidays to you, whatever you celebrate, and make sure you have a very safe and happy New Year as well. What we are doing today is doing kind of a look back in 2024 with some of the big things that kind of taken effect that impact veterans. Anything from home loan stuff to benefits. This is just kind of it's going to be a light conversation, but kind of kicking down some key points, right? As we move forward, we're also going to kind of have a, I don't know, maybe a prediction of things to come. So it's almost like for the Christmas theme, the Christmas past, future, and present, right? So here we are, the Christmas Carol, and I'll tell you, Clay is dressed the part. And tell us, Clay, what do you have in your cup?
It's eggnog. And one thing here, I am so mad that I'm left hanging. I look like an idiot right now. Right? On this stream, if it was all 3 of us, or at least one other, it'd be normal, you know? Right now, I got the Merry Sithmas, right? Christmas sweater. And I feel like I would win any Christmas sweater contest. And I have the old eggnog in my cup here. Now, this is totally off topic. Something about this cup. My wife is from BFE, Alabama, and I hate going to her, where she's from. And they have these little boutique stores that have just the stupidest, most expensive, dumbest things you could possibly imagine that women buy primarily. That's not a women joke. That's just my wife shops there. No dudes go in there. And so that's where this cup came from. So now every time I drink it, I just think of Fett, Alabama, and how I hate it. So anyways,
nice.
It's eggnog. To answer your question, it's eggnog.
Yeah. You put a little something extra in there, and then it makes it not be as bad. Just saying, you know.
You'll feel much better too.
Yeah. So David, thank you so much for making it here on Christmas Eve. I'm sure your family really appreciates it, and I'll tell you that we appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to kind of lead off with you, actually, David, and let you kind of just give some of your thoughts as we're reflecting back. This is kind of it's one of those funny times of years, right? Where it's, you think back on things, you think about the year, it's coming to an end. Just kind of any thoughts that you may have that you want to share with the folks.
Yeah, so thanks again for having me on. Happy to be here. And yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody out there. So 2024 has been an interesting year, especially when it comes to the real estate and finance markets. We've seen a big shift, which is actually historical, right? We had the NAR lawsuit that really changed, well, it did change the way that real estate is conducted, and especially for the veteran community, because as of August 10th of this year, they made it legal for realtors to be able to charge veterans to be able to use their services. So if you guys don't know, what happened was, now if you want to go and purchase a property, you have to pre-negotiate a commission with a buyer's agent before you even look at places. So potentially the cost of home ownership might go up for some people. Now, what we're always saying is that wintertime is really the best time to buy. And folks, we just had 6 people go under contract over the weekend. So early Christmas presents for them to be able to go into it. And they all got good deals and seller credits, which is something we've been talking about. But yeah, that was a huge change for the veteran community. But one thing I'll tell kind of moving forward for folks is that budgeting and credit is going to be the key to success for 2025, which I think, let's go over that in a little bit.
Right. Yeah. That's the National Association of Realtors. That's NAR. So when he's saying NAR, the National Association of Realtors, that was a huge deal. And it's going to be, I think, a while until we see what the new normal is going to be with regard to how all of this is going to transpire. Even the VA made a temporary move. It's not even a forever rule change or policy change to allow veterans to even make that payment. So it's going to be a curious situation over the next year, I think, to see kind of how the dust settles. In that realm. Do you have any thoughts on how you think the dust will settle, or is it just too early to still call?
That's the problem, is that I think that the National Association of Realtors is still facing some challenges with its multiple listing services, because people really like the old way of doing things. And, now they said they can't do it. And then, this temporary lift that they did, I don't know if they're going to be able to undo it in a sense, because literally by law, you have to negotiate your commissions prior to going into a contract. So if a veteran can't pay for it, then they would be kind of left on the sideline and not be competitive, because who would work with someone if they can't make any money?
Right.
So we'll see what the VA says, if there's going to be a regime change at the VA, and what their insights will look like.
Right. Just as the, I guess, wishful thinking, if there was a money tree, well, I guess there kind of is, but it affects everything else, right? When you start printing money. So let's pretend that there's a real money tree that doesn't affect anything else. It would be great if with this lawsuit that the VA was able to give some sort of a monetary benefit in purchasing a home, and basically pays a portion for you at close of escrow, if you will. That would be an amazing benefit. There's monetary benefits, right? We get monetary benefits. It's not like it's completely unheard of. Maybe it's a 1%, 2% of the house purchase price could be used for some sort of closing cost to kind of help offset that burden. Because the whole purpose, right? The whole purpose was, let's get veterans into homes with as little or no money out of their own pocket in order to do that. Now, we can sit here and say it's smarter if you have a bunch of money to put down and all those things, but the whole purpose was to get vets into homes, have them have home ownership with little impact on their financial means. Clay, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to give like a real life experience of what you're talking about, because how stuff goes over my head, but I'm more hands-on, right? And so when we were looking for a home, this was before COVID in 2020-ish, you know, when the whole world went crazy. We're shopping around, and I live in the DC area, and that's when Amazon was putting their headquarters in DC, which is a huge big change, right, for just housing market in general. And everywhere we went to buy a house, my competitors were huge corporations like Amazon trying to find houses for their executives. And you look at the VA home loan, and then all these corporations buying homes, who has more money, right? I can tell you it's not me. And so what that literally looks like is, in order to buy that home, now a veteran will have to say, well, the listing price was, I'm just going to throw a number out, 500. The veteran would have to say, well, I'll pay 550 for it. And then all of a sudden, boom, that's how housing market goes up, right? Because now you're competing with Amazon. And I'll tell you right now, the reason I'm in the house I'm in, the only reason I'm in the house that I'm in, Amazon was a big competitor in purchasing the home. The dude who owned the home, he wanted to meet us, which I thought was very weird. But at that point, we were a little desperate, right? He was a Marine, retired Marine. He was got out as a major. Not that I'm a fan of officers. I'm a fan of this officer, though. And he's super libertarian. And he was like, man, I really didn't want to sell to Amazon. He was like, I know we're taking a loss if we sell this house to you, but like, let me know, like, for real, if you want it, then we'll go with you. And I was like, yeah, dude, we want it. And that's exactly how, God honest truth, how we got the house. Because he could have easily sold it to Amazon, right? Because they're gonna outwin anyone, especially someone using the VA home loan. So like, that's what we're talking about. There's a discrepancy in using your VA home loan in situations like that. Now, if you live in BFE, it might be a little less competitive, I should say, when it comes to corporations. Maybe not. But that's like a real life situation that affected us, and it put us on a back foot. Like, what are you going to do? You know?
Right.
Well, yeah. And similar to Clay's stories, like, that's how, I'm in this business. I do this day in, day out. And that's the only reason that I got my place, is because another veteran lived here, because other people overbid us as well. But once they found out, like, oh, it's another veteran using the VA loan, right? Then that's how we got our place. So it is sometimes in some areas they look down on it, air quotes, because they're like, well, they have no money because they're doing 100% financing. That's not the case, right? It's a benefit of the program. And that's where it takes education for not both, hey, just us as veterans, but also the community to be able to understand, like, how do you work with them? But that's what we do, right? We connect people. We're able to help you and go through that, just because there's always changes, just like with VA disability. And I'll share a success story from you guys. I've had some clients that have been watching the channel, and I just talked to someone on Sunday, a past client of mine, that was able to get to 100% by watching you guys, and really all the changes and the thought process behind it. It's unreal, the amount of help that as a community we've been able to help people. And then also, that community help their fellow brothers and sisters.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, yeah, that's what it's all about, right? And I think that the hard thing here for any of us on this side of the screen trying to disseminate information is the majority of the people watching have watched things like this and have been searching for things like this. So in some cases it can be a little bit repetitive, or maybe just a different angle of something. But we have to remember that we have thousands and thousands and thousands of new people every single month, at least, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 people or more new that are getting this information maybe for the first time. And, that goes to my whole kind of mindset. And I know that it's collective of really trying to help out everybody. And it's hard to speak to one person because everybody has a different knowledge base, right? And so bear with us as we go through educating and re-educating. And if anybody is old enough to remember Franklin Covey classes on time management and organization, they had a thing in there called sharpening the saw. And it's going back and re-engaging with the basics that you already knew, because you start to forget little kind of nuances of it. And so look at it as a way of sharpening the saw on those things that you may already know. Clay, what are some of the maybe one or two of the top things right now off the top of your mind that changed up in 2024, now that we're at the end of it?
Yeah, so there's two final changes, right? We have proposed changes. We have changes that have been pushed into 2025. There's two changes that are bee's knees. This happened. It's the new gospel, right? Insomnia at the beginning of the year was a sneaky change.
It was
a VA SRD change. Did the VA do any sort of release on this change? No, they didn't. In fact, the only reason we know is because I subbed the changes on N21 TAC 1 and then YouTube exploded, right? That's the only reason people know. So shame on you, VA. Anyways, insomnia change real quick, and I can really speak on this for 8 hours.
Clay, and before you jump into it, I just want to double down on the fact that this came out of nowhere. Yeah. And it was a very surprising change. And sadly, this was a secondary condition change for folks, right? So somebody who may have been able to claim that as a secondary, well, now it's a different boat. So to dive into it, man, share your piece with us.
Cliff note version, okay? Insomnia can be claimed secondary, but when it is roped into the primary rating. So for instance, if you claim insomnia secondary to tinnitus, tinnitus is capped at 10%. If insomnia is service connected, your rating will be tinnitus with insomnia 10%. Whereas prior to the change, it was tinnitus 10%, insomnia at 10, 30, 50, 70, or 100. Right?
And probably most commonly what?
If I had to say for insomnia, I would probably say 30, 50 would be my opinion.
Agreed.
Now, I've seen some higher ratings, but generally 30, 50, yeah.
I'm on board with that. Yeah.
And so it was a huge slap in the face. Okay. Now you can still claim insomnia direct, but it must be insomnia direct. Now there is a caveat here, because the notion from YouTube was, well, insomnia doesn't matter anymore, don't claim it. That it couldn't honestly be the opposite. So although insomnia is capped, let's say with tinnitus at 10%, once you have insomnia service connected, I would look at it as an intermediate step, like obesity or alcohol use disorder. Once insomnia is service connected, still roped in with tinnitus, insomnia is likely going to develop other mental health conditions. And so you can still do secondaries on insomnia. Now, it's not easy peasy lemon squeezy by any means, okay? But it's just an extra step. And it was a sneaky M21 TAC 1 change that just happened pretty much overnight. And many clinical psychologists, many psychiatrists have disagreed with the change, and their basis of the change was in accordance with DSM-5 criteria. And there was a difference of opinion between the VA and then the medical community. And I'm super generalizing there. Okay.
Right.
So that's one change. Do you want to add to that at all?
Yeah. I kind of want to touch on it a little bit. And then I also want to just kick it to Dave to get his thoughts on just hearing how these things happen. This isn't necessarily his neck deep wheelhouse. So, but it is stuff that's interesting, and I like to get other perspectives. So first, before I kick it over to David, two things that you mentioned. One is, sure, you can still do insomnia, but now it's as a straight up service connected condition that you must show, by the way, your insomnia wasn't due to anything else. So it's not your bad back keeping you awake, right? No. It's not your bad back, because then that's back with insomnia, right? So it's just, I don't know why it's here. I can't sleep, right? And you have to have the nexus for that, which means ideally you got diagnosed for insomnia in service. ideally, right? Now you can always build the big bridge back and do the Nexus letters and all that, but things that you've mentioned before, Clay, is there's going to be a lot of ruling out before you can rule in, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot that you have to get through. Now, I am, and I think you are too, Clay, on the side of insomnia due to pain is like a real thing, right? People can't stay asleep for a long time typically. Maybe they don't have that big of an issue falling asleep. They pop some, Advil or whatever. They go to sleep. They wake up 3, 4, 5 hours later when the pain med's wearing off. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh God, you're tossing and turning and you're doing all of that. So what else do you call it, right? It's insomnia because of your musculoskeletal issues. Now that's gone as a secondary condition that's rateable. I would venture to say that the next step would probably be, okay, well, fine. Then it's not insomnia. I'm depressed because of this.
Yeah.
Because of this back issue, right? And this is causing me cognitive issues, and I'm depressed about it, right? So maybe that could be a way for folks. Hearing this, David, on how insomnia used to be allowed as a secondary condition, specifically to things like, most commonly probably, to things like you got a bad back, right? You got bad joint issues, and you're staying up. And now the VA, not only did they sneakingly change it, but just the fact that they did remove that as a rateable condition. That's massive, by the way. Clay said 30 to 50%, and I agree.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get that because I also have back pain from the military and knee joint issues. So I get that completely. So, the one thing that came to me immediately is something that I procrastinated myself, is that if you keep waiting, the rules keep changing and they're not changing in your favor. So when you're around the dinner table and you have a veteran or family member that you're talking with, they haven't filed, you should encourage them to at least, take a look into it. And I'll point something else out. Like, Jay, when you're going through all this stuff, like, hey, if you have these types of issues, for some, they don't even know that this is, I don't even know how to say it. Like, because it's like they would think that it's service connected, or their conditions are just like, oh, it just is what it is because of my age. It's like you really need to sit down with somebody to do a full, no BS, just be honest on like, hey, these are the challenges that I'm having, right? Hey, I'm not as sharp as I used to be. Hey, I'm, only sleeping 3-hour intervals at night. Speaking with a medical professional, like they can then walk you through maybe, hey, these are the things that are service related. That way you could at least get some type of service connection, because one, it's additional income. Two, for a lot of people, it changes their lives. Like I talk to people all the time, especially with older veterans that are only receiving Social Security. If you get an additional $4,000 a month by getting 100% PNT, it's a game changer. And again, I've talked to people day in, day out that have gone through that process, that watch the channel, take the recommendations, they do it on their own. They don't have to pay, a crooked company a bunch of money in order for them to keep delaying their claims, right? It's not exactly fun, but yeah. I mean, and
Right.
the fact that they changed it without doing any type of like hearing or having additional input from the outside, I don't know how, their process to legally do it is, but like there should be some oversight to these changes, not just doing them overnight, because again, like what happens if you have this and it is a severe condition, but you file it incorrectly?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And wasn't quite the answer I thought you were going to give. I thought you were going to say, well, if you buy a different house with a better bedroom and get a good mattress, then that could help with it. No, just kidding. So here's one I'm going to throw out to you guys. And then Clay, I want to get your thoughts on this one.
Mm-hmm.
The change for GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. I am not a fan of that stupid change. Now, I am a fan of one piece of it. The fact that they gave GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, its own diagnostic code.
I'm going to step in here. I assume his internet is a little spotty right now. Okay, so I know exactly what Jason's going to say. GERD has its own diagnostic code as of May 19th. This is a final change, not proposed. He'll come back, don't worry. And we saw GERD max out at 60%. Now it's maxed at 80%, which at first glance is a really good change, right? Except when you look at the rating criteria. Okay, Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Talk about diagnostic code. I don't know if you heard me or not.
No, I didn't hear anything. Here I am. So I'll kind of continue on. Yeah. So the long story short, my wife turned off the internet so my son doesn't watch anything on computers or anything. Yay. So anyway, here I am. All right. So GERDs change. GERD used to be rated against the hiatal hernia criteria, which had things like, reflux, vomiting, difficulty swallowing, chest pain, maybe arm pain. These were symptoms of hiatal hernia that GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, would be rated against, which are all like legit criteria in my mind of signs and symptoms of GERD. So then they make this change. They give it its own diagnostic code. And under the new diagnostic code, it says, okay, well, there's not really a rating schedule for GERD. Instead, rated against the esophageal stricture criteria, which is really just you have tightening of the esophagus and you need to get it opened either by like medicine or like a little balloon dropping in there and opening it up, basically. So the VA tried to throw out the fact that, cool, GERD used to be rated against hiatal hernia and could be rated as high as 60% in the old way. The new way, it can actually go up to 80%. But like this many people will ever qualify for that. And way less people are even going to qualify for really any monetary benefit for GERD on the new rating schedule, in my opinion. A very small amount. I think that it was more liberal, for lack of a better way of putting it, before for veterans with regard to GERD. So the one thing that I want to point out, and then I want to get your thoughts, Clay, is unlike the change for insomnia, the VA actually did notify people in a horrible way. I mean, still nobody knows, but at least they quote unquote tried. They pushed out a release that said, hey, look, we're changing the gastroesophageal reflux disease under the, what is it? I don't even remember the rating schedule, gastrointestinal, whatever rating schedule.
Yeah.
No, digestive systems.
Yeah.
There you go. So the digestive systems rating schedule is changing. We're changing it. It's going into effect 60 days from now. So that gave veterans an opportunity to jump on it and file now. At least get the claim filed. Why, Clay? Tell the people why it would be important in that case to file it as soon as you know, before it goes into effect, and give your thoughts on GERD as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer everyone's. The main question, and I'm sure you get the same question, Jason. If we talk about changes, the number one question is, am I safe? Yada, yada, yada. Am I safe? Context of my situation. Am I safe this? Am I safe that? The answer is, well, it depends, right? Everyone's situation is different. If your intent to file is prior to the change, the VA must, it's not optional, they must evaluate you on both rating schedules and give you the higher rating. So for instance, on the old GERD, which is hiatal hernia, if you would have rated 30%, okay, good. On the new GERD, if you would have rated 0%, which is quite likely, okay, the VA now has to give you hiatal hernia, although the new rating is established. So yes, you are safe. Fast forward, your intent to file is after the change. The old rating change doesn't matter at all. It's just the current rating. And so, no, you're not safe. I guess, am I safe is not the right question in that context. The other situation is if you're already rated, what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. You're good. So are you safe? Yes. / maybe / it depends. Okay. Now I would like to summarize the changes for GERD. at least in Barney style speak. The VA basically said, hey, all these other GERD-like symptoms that do inhibit your life and ability to have go to work and just live like everyone else. Yeah, we're going to forget about all of those and focus on esophageal stricture. That's essentially what happened, right? Because there are other GERD symptoms that mean nothing now. Well, at least not with according to VA SRD, right? The Schedule Rating of Disabilities. And the reason we saw the notification happen is because this was a 38 CFR VA SRD change, and the insomnia was an M21 TAC one, which is a processing regulation. I am a rater at the VA. What is my job? It's M21 TAC one. That's your job, is to know that, which is ironic because they don't. That's a whole other. But then apart from GERD, now GERD was a major one. There was some good changes in there. I think GERD is absolute baloney cakes. That's a bad change, okay? I think insomnia is baloney cakes. It's a bad change. I don't know where baloney cakes came from. I'm that forever now because I think it's funny. But, we saw the changes to IBS, and I think they were amazing, right? They added a 20% criteria, so now it's 10, 20, 30%. We also see the rating change for hemorrhoids. I think it's 0, 10, and 20, where it was 0 and 10 before. Don't quote me on that. Something changed. It was favorable. And so in one sense, if you had GERD, I probably wouldn't do anything with it, right? In another sense, if you have GERD now, definitely submit. Don't worry about the change at all. But now you can have IBS as another rated condition. So it boils down to two situations. And this is the last thing I'll say. You have this group of people here who don't need to touch GI at all and just go about your merry little life and not do anything. You have this new group of people here who are looking at GERD and IBS and other digestive system ratings. And now, okay, GERD, you might get 10%, probably 0%, IBS 30%. You can get some hemorrhoids in there. And these conditions are they're like self-flicking ice cream cones, right? They really latch on to each other. So people with GERD likely have or will develop IBS, who likely have and will develop hemorrhoids, right? And so you see this like three-pronged triangle of just getting destroyed all the time. And so in that sense, the rating change is favorable because you have the IBS rating as well, but not the 30% rating for GERD, which is what we saw very commonly on the old rating schedule. Now I would make the argument, Jason, you'll see a lot of 0 and 10% for GERD on the new schedule, with the exclusion of those who have, like, the esophageal stricture sucks. We're not really doing it justice. It is like we're talking.
Right. Yeah. If you're on that, I'm sorry you are. Right. Yeah. I get it.
So if you have esophageal stricture, you are GERD, you're living your best life in terms of VA disability goes, right? Your life actually sucks, but sorry about that. But yeah, those are my thoughts. David, when you hear, so that change is way more complicated than insomnia, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen has that like affected a veteran's ability to maintain income, to get out of debt, to buy a home? I mean, from your perspective, what do you see on these changes?
So, I mean, not specifically to GERD and veterans. A lot of the time, the challenges that I see veterans face is from TBIs or having post-traumatic PTSD, right? When they're trying to go through a transaction where there's a lot of change, a lot of frustration. So we see a lot of that. I haven't really seen much on the GERD part. But what I thought of when you mentioned that is getting the most up-to-date information as fast as possible, and then giving the information out as far as possible, because it kind of relates to the housing piece, because the VA has what's called VA circulars, which they do updates to like their manual. And that's the challenge, because people don't know what those updates are. They think one way, and the rules have changed. Now what they couldn't do before, they can do. And sometimes what they could have done, they can't do now. So that's just relevant, I think, in general to like what we do with the channels on educating out on what are the upcoming changes. But still goes back to what I've said before, is that you should be filing sooner than later, because the longer you wait, typically it's not favorable. And Clay, correct me if I'm wrong. So if you're not 100% PNT, right, and you have a rating for GERD, is there a chance that if you were to go back for maybe a different condition, that they could make you redo the CMP exam for GERD and then take you at the new ratings? Is that even possible?
That's a loaded question, and it depends. Because so 99.9% of the time, the answer is no. Right.
Okay.
And so, for instance, I have GERD. I claim mental health completely separate over here. Nothing's going to happen with GERD. Now, if GERD has a routine future exam, it's on the table. I'm immediately on the table. But which is, and Jason, maybe, and I think you have more experience with this one than I do. GERD generally has a routine future exam because there's medication.
Yes.
It's a condition that can
There's non-static
with treatment.
Right. So they'll do it as non-static at the beginning, unless you have overwhelming evidence along the way, right? So again, welcome to the world of nuance, right? And this is why it seems like we keep saying the same things over and over in videos, but there's little twists and little changes, because you can say the same thing that would apply to 7 different people. So that's 7 different videos, right?
Yep.
So I'll give 2 options here. One is veteran complained of heart, but we'll make the Nexus a little bit easier, right? So they complained about heartburn while they were in service. They didn't really realize it was GERD, but they had some documentation to tie back a Nexus to. Then years go by, they started filing claims, and they thought, I think I have GERD. I should probably file for that. So they go and they get diagnosed, and now they have their diagnosis, and they file their claim, and they get it shut off to the VA. The VA is going to go, well, you have like no history really of it, so we can't really benchmark where it's going. So we'll award it to you because you have GERD and you show that you complained about symptoms of it back in service. So we're going to give it to you, but we're giving you a future exam within 5 years, typically 2 to 5 years. Why? Because the VA wants to make sure they don't go over the 5-year rule, because it's harder to reduce you. So they want to see you again within 2 to 5 years. That's that veteran. Another veteran, maybe they said the same thing in service, right? They complained about it. It's in their records. Nexus is easy. Then they got out and they went to a civilian doctor. They started being seen, treated, Prilosec, whatever. They've got a file like that on all of their treatment and all the things that they've gone through, whatever. Appointment every 6 months for their GERD, getting their esophagus scoped, all that good stuff. And they have 10 years worth of documents that show that it is not any better than it was from the beginning. In fact, it actually got worse. Now, they're going to file all of that, and the smart veteran would say, hey, doc, can you do me a favor and explain on just a little one pager that my condition is considered static and why, based on the past 10 years. And I'm going to file that along with it. The VA, most likely, not guaranteed, VA doesn't always get things right. It's a huge thing, and with different levels of people working there with different eyes, right? But what they should do is they should go, okay, look, we have a 5-10 year plus history of this condition being static in nature. The doctor saying it's static. They've presented the proof. We should automatically give them the 5-year rule in this way, because it's medical evidence of 5 years staying static or getting worse. So you kind of have 2 different versions there, Clay.
Yeah. And real quick, because I want to do, there's another aspect to your question, David, that I think was very direct. If you are looking at a secondary condition from GERD, and I'm just spitballing, let's say you claim IBS secondary to GERD, that allows the VA, and I'm paraphrasing here, the answer is yes. Then they could take a look at that GERD and say, okay, we're going to reevaluate this. There's many, many other factors at hand here, many, many others. But yeah, what Jason just explained, people talk about, how do I get static disability ratings? How do I get P&T? Jason just explained what a chronic condition is. Okay. Heartburn itself is not chronic. gastroesophageal reflux disease. It's just heartburn. But you have a paper trail going years, and years would be perfect, right? But you really got to show that the diagnosis is chronic, right? Versus there's acute diagnosis. There's all types of diagnosis. You want to show the chronicity of that. You know, this condition has sucked for this long. It's not getting better. Anyways, that's GERD, Jason. Now there are other changes. That's GERD. That's digestive system, right? So insomnia, digestive, those were final. Now we have the proposed changes of mental health, tinnitus, sleep apnea, which we've talked about a lot. There are two newer changes I would rather spend time on because I take it we're not going to spend all day on Christmas Eve on the stream. There's a proposed change for bronchitis. It's constrictive bronchitis or constructive. I think it's constrictive. That was proposed in September. And then we have the newest proposal, which is major changes for neurological conditions, which is nerve damage, like radiculopathy, sciatica, right? It's TBI. It's the general rating formula for Parkinson's, right? Those are major changes. And I don't want to turn this into a conspiracy theory stream, but I'm going to say something, okay? It is my opinion, and I pray to God I'm wrong. It's my opinion that looking at the proposed changes, it's for disabilities that really matter, or the money. If I made a money maker VA claim video, it would be insomnia. It would be digestive. It would be mental health. It would be sleep apnea.
Sleep apnea.
Tinnitus. It would be secondary neurological conditions, right? Now, I'm not a genius, but I know 2 + 2 = 4. And so when I look at these proposed changes, it really, really, to me, in my opinion, makes it seem like, hey, more veterans are going to be service connected. That's a good thing. We're going to change the criteria to lower the ratings. So you have this, 18 million plus veterans will be service connected. That's how many veterans there are, which is decreasing. But now you see these 50, 70, 80, 90, one rating for sleep apnea at 50. All that's going to decrease. And so the conspiracy to me is yikes,
Yeah. And you might not be far off. I mean, for real, because it's not just, claims that add up quickly. It's also, you're also kind of naming the most commonly claimed conditions, right? So it's kind of twofold. So David, as we flash back, is there anything else from 2024 changes wise, or anything kind of current that you're looking at on the home loan side of the house?
Definitely. And before I go into that, I will touch on something which is the most common. When I ask veterans, have you filed for VA disability? And they're like, no. I'll ask them like, oh, have you seen a doctor? And most of the time they don't even go and get seen. So, Jason, to your point where you're like, hey, a veteran is documenting everything. For some veterans, they're busy, right? And they don't have time. But like you guys have said, it's $1 million opportunity by you just going and spending some time and going to the doctor, getting things documented, so then you can kind of go into that. So I'll leave it at that, because like I badger people about it. Like, make sure you document the stuff for it. I would say, looking into where we're at now, we've talked about before, is like, hey, winter months, especially up north, great time to get into the housing market. And then what I always tell people is like, some people will be like, I'm waiting for the market to drop 40%, that interest rates to be 2% again. That combination is not going to happen. I promise you that. We have the internet now. People are smarter than ever, and home buying is still crazy competitive. So I'll tell you that this year, we're returning more to a normal market because we have a lot more inventory that we had the prior year, like 26% more inventory. Now we're a couple 100,000 homes off from 2020. It's from 2019. That was kind of like the normal market. So what they're predicting for next year is that, and I'm kind of in agreement with it, because home values went up a little over 5% this year, which is good. And what's the COLA raise for next year? You guys,
2.5.
2.5?
2.5.
2.5. Yep.
So the one part you look at is that historically home values have gone up, right? And last year they went up over 5%. So the longer you wait, really, the more it becomes more and more expensive, right? Because if your disability went up 2.5%, but home values went up over 5%, now you're paying 2.5% more technically, right, than what you have. So keep that in mind. Now, rates next year, I think, are going to be interesting because of the administration change, some of the proposals that they have going on. And maybe tariffs might lower our overall taxes, right? Kind of like what their plan is. So in one sense, the rates can move in your favor. But on the other hand, there's just so much unknown when it comes to that. What I can tell you is what you know now, right? If you can afford something today, you execute today. Because again, down in the future, it just becomes more expensive over time. And then, I mean, the big thing too is going to be any additional changes with NAR's rules. And I'll tell you that I see more and more veterans right now are representing themselves and not using realtors, which is a big change, but it also requires a ridiculous amount of education, especially when you're looking at something that's like one of the most expensive things you will ever buy. Right? Houses are insane. So you have to know how to navigate that piece. And I know from my end, next year will be a big push for education around that subject, is purchasing properties on your own. And the second one's going to be investing, right? So it's going to be, how do you leverage your VA loan and other loan products to actually invest in real estate? Because that is something that we get questions about all the time. So I'm currently working on that video, and I'll set up like a whole series of that for next year to, help veterans and the community really understand like how to even get into that piece, especially with all the changes that are going to be coming up.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think that the one kind of big piece there, and yes, you can represent yourself just like you represent yourself filing a VA claim. Right. Can some people do it successfully and have no issues? Yes. Can others screw it all up and be into a contract to purchase a place that's a money pit, and for some reason they decided they didn't want to do a home inspection or this inspection or that inspection, and next thing they know they're having some major issues? Yes. So don't take that process lightly, and it might be. You got to make the decision yourself at the end of the day, is what it is. But you're paying for a service that in a way is hopefully going to have your best interest in mind.
And I'll add to that is that
please.
That's why interviewing people is so important, right? Because you're 100% right. Some people can do all the research, they can spend the time, they can focus in, and they can do it. A lot of people can't, because it is something you don't do every day. And especially the amount of rules that are required, the legality, and the market is designed to restrict you from knowing how to do these things, because that's how they ensure job security. Okay.
Right.
But make sure that you're interviewing people, just like when we talk about housing or you guys talking about disability stuff, you can cross-reference what we say in the VA handbook, right? And with agents, same thing. You should interview them to make sure that you guys align both in how you want to work together, communication style, and their knowledge base of the area that you're buying in, because it's going to have a drastic impact, especially if you, like, for a lot of disabled veterans that could live anywhere in the country, they'll be like, I'm just looking to see where it has the best benefits for me and moving to that area. So you may not even be physically there. You're relying on somebody to virtually show you places. So just research.
Yeah, well said. It kind of goes to Clay's constant saying of education, right? Educate yourself. Being informed and educated is that's a very dangerous veteran, right? Is educated and aware one. So
I have a question for David, actually.
Do it.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but this is a genuine question.
I'm used to it at this point.
We talk about living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm of the opinion, don't do it. That's just, I've done it my whole life. It sucks balls. That's it, right? You want to learn the suck of financial stress, go paycheck to paycheck. I don't care if it's $1 million a year or 10 grand a year, your life's going to suck. Now, have you ever recommended someone not buy a home? Because it's like, hey, you can afford $1 million home, but man, if you buy this home, if anything, if you need new tires, guess what? You're not getting new tires, right? Because they're living really up to their cap. And you look at lenders, and a lot of lenders will do math jujitsu.
Yeah.
You know, saying take out a 401k loan and pay off your car to get rid of that debt. And I mean, I've seen, just from my friends, I've seen some crazy stuff. I'm just like, yeah, that's.
I know, I've talked to them.
Yeah, I don't know if that's recommended or not, but I can tell you at first glance, I wouldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever recommended someone of being like, you know what? Although you can afford, you know, I'm saying $1 million as a number, it could be 200 grand. Although you can afford this amount, maybe you cap your budget at 150 or at 500 or whatever that looks like. Would you share some insights on that? Because it kind of hurts you, right? Because obviously the more money they spend on the house, the better it is for you, but it also sucks for them, if anything. Right?
Yeah. So a couple of caveats to that. One, you know, like when someone applies for a home loan, I can't just be like, hey, you know what? I think you shouldn't get a mortgage. You're not getting one. So that's definitely something that can't be done, right? So, but this is why we educate people on what the VA loan does, because one, the VA loan is so ridiculously good, it lets veterans put themselves in a bad situation budget-wise because they only look at VA loans primarily look at what's called residual income, and it's a very low loan amount that you really need to survive on a monthly basis. And so that's when I talk to people, I always ask them, how much are you comfortable paying on a monthly basis? Now, I reviewed the financial information to know, hey, look, this is how much the net income is. And so if I'm seeing somebody that like is trying to max out a budget, then I'll say, hey, listen, and I had this conversation with someone the other day where I'm like, you know, that if you buy this house, you're going to have $500 left to pay insurance, groceries, heating, and electric. And they're like, oh, like I didn't realize that. And I'm like how much do you want to save? So you work backwards. In most situations, you always want to do things backwards because you want to know, hey, this is my lifestyle, right? Some people will be like, hey, I love to travel. I need to leave a large budget for travel, whatever it is, but they at least know it. They say, hey, I'm comfortable paying $2,000 a month for my mortgage, and that's it. Maybe I'll go 100 or 200 more if it fits the perfect, like, you know, perfect everything, and I don't have to renovate the property. Okay, it makes sense. Then, you know, you can look at properties within that price point, but we do have people that do want to max out their VA home loan benefits. And unfortunately, we can only educate them on, hey, this is the process. Now, for some veterans, you know, when they're going through the qualification process, and I would kind of take one step back, home ownership is different to everybody and what it means, right? Some people, it's, hey, this is the area I want to live in, or I want to be close to family. Hey, this is the school district we want to be in. Whatever that driver is what causes people to do all these other things. Like, hey, if I don't have money for closing costs, but I have a TSP account with 200,000 in there, can I borrow against it to put money to either do a down payment because I might need one because of multiple VA loans, or do I use that towards closing costs so I can get into home ownership now and not wait until 2027 where home values at that point have already increased 10%. I don't know where the rates are, or do I lock in now, right? So that's a conversation that we're having with people. Yesterday, even I had some with somebody that was like, the closing costs were higher than I thought. We can afford the monthly payment. It's our house that we really want, but we don't like the closing costs. Well, the area that they're purchasing, it's just how that market is to enter, right? It's just expensive. And what they decided was that, you know what? It doesn't make sense for us to wait another year or two because of how values will go up versus us locking in now and then doing a refinance a little bit later. And that question also pertains heavily to veterans that receive disability that will get a property tax exemption. And what I mean by that is that when you qualify for a mortgage, you still have to normally now there's cases where you don't have to do this, and we do this, is we don't have to escrow your taxes and insurance in your monthly payment. That's only if you meet the criteria for not paying property taxes and you need a certain rating, and it depends on the area, right? So a lot of caveats, just like disability. So sometimes veterans will push their budget to the max, but then in a year, it's going to be okay because the taxes are going to fall off. But it is a dangerous game, like you mentioned. And if you don't have money saved up, it could literally be one thing that goes wrong. Like your tires go out. Hey, $1,000 that you don't have, then now you have to spend. You don't have access to credit because you haven't been building up credit. And for some veterans, they love paying cash, and I get that. But guess what? When it comes to home ownership or you need access to money, it's hard to get that money then. And it's like I always say, it's like when you don't need money, it's easy to get it. But when you do need money, it's the hardest to get. So position yourself that you have the ability to save, budget, and credit. Credit gets you the best financial terms possible, which again is also a little bit dangerous because then you might overspend. And remember one thing too, is that if you get a 30-year, let's say, fixed mortgage, the payment and interest portion stays the same. Taxes and insurance normally go up. So I'll get calls from people that'll be like, hey, my mortgage payment up $350. And I'm like, why did it go up $350? And they're like, I don't know. Well, it's mostly because you didn't check your annual tax bill statement. It comes out in advance. They don't just say like, hey, it's due today, you need to pay it. They normally give you a couple weeks or a month leeway time. And then your homeowner's insurance normally also goes up, especially if you're on the coastal states with all the hurricanes. People are not tracking that. And all of a sudden, one day, mortgage payment goes up $500. I've seen them go up way more than that because they have to make up the money plus the new escrows. So,
Right.
And there's no easy fix, right? Unless you have the cash on hand because you save money, right? Or you change insurance companies. So keep that in mind when you're going through that. But that's a good question.
Right.
I could talk for like 8 hours on this.
You know, and another thing that just popped in my mind was, you know, be aware of supplemental tax bills. Sometimes you're going to end up getting a supplemental tax bill that comes out of nowhere. And when you deplete out your savings to get into a place or you're using it to make your payments, dipping into your savings to make payments, and then you get a supplemental tax bill, that could be heartbreaking. So another one of the things that you said, David, that I love is instead of going to a lender, if you're looking to purchase a home, is instead of going, hey, what's the maximum I qualify for? Saying, this is the payment, like you had mentioned, this is the payment I'm comfortable with, this is the maximum payment. And you reverse engineer it and come back with this is the purchase price. And if you stay in that mindset, you're going to be in a good spot, because inevitably, if you come in and you say, give me the highest, what's the maximum I can qualify for, you're always going to find something that's a little more expensive, a little bit not. Well, this one's nicer than that one. You know, you don't leave the Toyota dealership and go to the Mercedes dealership. It's just, that's not what you do. Stay in the range you want to be at and be comfortable, and find something that you like and love in that range so you can have a comfortable life. I agree. I know we have a limited time. Clay, what else do we have? Past, present, future, with your Christmassy outfit on, but at least you got red and I got green, right? So that is kind of
red and blue, kind of.
Yeah, you got something. See?
Yeah, I think, you know, if I was to summarize what David said, because when you talk, I love talking to true subject matter experts. I don't even care what we're talking about. Like in my federal job, I'm an instructor, and we go to all different types of courses. People come to our courses that are true experts in whatever it is they do. We've spoken to Space Force dudes, some NSA dudes, NASA dudes, and it's like when they talk, I'm just like, wow, this is awesome. And that's what I get when David talks. And so what that means to me is, if you are sitting there next year, 2 years from now, you know you're going to buy a home, you'll see David's contact information down below. You can go with anyone you want, okay? But I'm telling you, if you want someone who is going to be in your corner and tell you, hey, if you buy that home and something goes wrong, your life's going to suck, right? If you want that like level personal touch one-on-one, definitely reach out to David. You'll see all of that below in the description on everyone's channel. And whenever you book an appointment with him, who do they speak to? Do they speak to like your assistant or me or Jason, or who do they
No,
talk
they
to?
actually talk with me, which most people are surprised. They're like, wait, who am I talking to? So you actually have a conversation with me and go through that process. But it's the same thing on my channel. It's that I have your guys' information on there as well, because we have so many veterans that are looking to file or looking to get upgraded and just don't know that process. So yeah, the partnership has been great because we benefit both of our groups across the board, right? From updated information to disability to housing benefits. You're getting all the most updated information.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, hey, Clay, if you don't have anything to add, if you wanted to pull out a couple questions, maybe as kind of a end of the year thing, if anybody has any somewhat not too detailed, take 4 hours to answer questions, we'd be happy to try to answer a few here before we jump off.
Yeah, so first we have a new member, JL. I have no idea which channel it is, but we thank you. Okay. What helps any of us helps all of us. Okay. So thank you very much. Easy Rollins with the $2 super chat says, when does the GERD change go into effect? Now, I answered you in the chat once you had posted this because we were mid conversation there, but it already happened, or it happened already, however you want to say that. May 19th of 2024, I believe, is that change. And that was the final change was proposed, I want to say less than 60 days out, Jason. It was like 40-ish days, if I remember correctly. And so that's how
you're talking about from the, yeah. Reverse that up a little bit. Yeah. So, it was almost 60.
Yeah, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because it really brings into question mental health, tinnitus, sleep apnea, constrictive bronchitis, and the neurological changes. Is the proposals are done, right? There's the neurological is still in its comment period, but once the proposals are done, like that, the changes are going to go into effect. Okay. And so it could be 2025. It could be 2045. We don't know. It's not going to be that long. I firmly believe it's going to be summer of next year is my personal opinion. But yeah, 40 days to get everyone in gear. And guess who's pushing that out? The VA is through a FedReg, .pdf file that no one reads. And so you really got to be on top of your game there. So I wanted to answer his question and then probably the question that the masses have as well. And I said his, assuming you are a boy, but we don't know, it's fluid. Anyways, we have Tony Raul here with $3 super sticker. Thank you very much. As far as questions go, let me pull one out. Doing this on the fly right
and
now.
I'm gonna throw this out there while you're doing that, Clay, that with the proposed changes, remember that these are currently proposed. They're going through the process just like all the other changes have ever done in the past. And specifically, it is neurological, respiratory, auditory, and mental health changes. Those rating schedules are changing. In the books, it's basically has a final date for April of 2025. They may kick the can down the road. We don't know. What we are hoping for is that the VA will put out a notification that they will be doing the implementation and the effective date within X number of days, like they did with GERD. There's no guarantee, right? Who knows what they're going to do? It could say, hey, in a week it's happening. So if you want to be super safe, and it's totally up to everybody individually, work with an accredited representative, have a conversation. You could put in an intent to file now. That buys you a year. Now you've started essentially your claim, and you would write, if the proposals go into effect, you're going to write both of those rating schedules if they take effect within that year while you're doing your claim. Clay.
Yes, I'm ready. So I actually want to do something. This is off the top of my head. David, I want to put you on the spot. I have 3 questions. 2 of them are VA disability related. One of them is about a VA home loan. I would like so I know Jason and I know the answers. Okay. I would like to ask you a VA disability question.
Okay.
And then I'm actually going to take on the VA home loan question. So I'm on the same ship. Okay.
Okay.
I have no idea if I'm going to answer it right. I'm going to do my best. You would hope just by osmosis and
is that how it works?
I just understand VA home loan stuff. So I'm gonna give you an easy one. T-ball. Okay.
Okay. Well, don't line it up that way because
Hold on. This is T-ball. We have another one. This is T-ball level. Do you normally need a Nexus letter for a presumptive Pact Act claim?
No.
Was that a question mark at the end of that?
No. You don't need it. You're good to
There
go.
you go. That's correct. Yes. Now, I'll explain why. Don't
good.
on explaining why. Yeah. So there's no such thing as a Pact Act claim. So the question is a bit weird. There are disabilities covered under the Pact Act. The Pact Act's legislation. So you have like asthma, COPD, sinusitis, rhinitis, and then you have the undiagnosed illnesses, IBS, chronic fatigue, and it just goes on and on. Okay. The thing the legislation does, it assumes the nexus. So the technical answer is yes, you still need a nexus, except the nexus is presumptive in nature, not medical in nature. The nexus is presumptive. Jason, do you want to reword what I said? I wanted to be a super technical answer there.
I love that. That's such a great way to say it. So when it's a presumptive condition, the VA essentially removes your requirement to prove the nexus. Instead, they shift to prove to the VA that you served in a presumptive location during a specified time frame, and you have a condition on that conditions list of presumptive conditions for the said time and location space. So, for example, a Vietnam veteran with Agent Orange has a presumptive list, but they're not going to use the burn pit presumptive list. They're going to use the Agent Orange presumptive list because of their time and location, and vice versa, right? So that would be just my way of explaining it as well.
Okay, so that's T-ball level. All right.
Okay.
Now we're gonna up it a little bit. And again, the next question, I'm gonna be in your shoes. So from James B. and Easy Rollins, don't worry, I see that. We're definitely gonna get to you. Just give us a minute here. I received a 0% for allergic rhinitis and chronic sinusitis, so 2 different zeros. Do you think if I get the laser surgery that the VA wants to do, that would change my rating from 0 to something higher? Now, this one is a bit intricate. Okay.
That is more than intricate. But one thing I will definitely say is that it depends.
That's a cop out.
no. But the thing is, it is definitely like, I mean, when I'm looking at this, right? So if you must have gotten rated for something, but not high enough for you to actually get a rating. So if you have surgery, how would that change a 0% rating? Because your condition wouldn't have gotten worse. It would have gotten better. Right? That's my thought process on that.
Okay. So you're there. You're trucking there. Okay. When you look at sinusitis criteria, and I hate myself for memorizing this, you'll see surgical requirements, right? And that also includes veterans who are candidates for surgery but can't get surgery for whatever reason, right? Like they have a high blood pressure, they don't want to do surgery, got it. That's still a candidate. And so you'll see surgeries, but there's little caveats. Surgeries that are not effective will carry the 50% rating, right? Then you see surgeries, and then if they are effective, then it's rated on residuals of the surgery. So there's essentially 2 routes there, right? Gotcha. The surgery happened, the polyps came back, and there's many things that can happen from that, right? Then you'll be rated wherever that's at. The surgery was effective, and we look at residuals. And so that's for sinusitis. For rhinitis, your polyps are full or they're not, right? And then it'll be CT scans. There's different types of treatments of surgeries, nasal sprays all the way to laser engraving surgery, whatever that looks like for you. So the answer was yes, it does depend. I just wanted you to
but let me ask you a question with that. Is that if you have a 0% rating, right? And that's the only rating that you have. If the VA makes a recommendation, isn't it like you have to pay a copay then for that surgery? Because you're not at the, 50% or higher, you're considered a priority. But like if they make the recommendation, what happens there?
If it's service connected, you're covered.
So even if it's 0, because I thought they had a copay, even if you had, it's just for that. If you had something else, like a knee injury, then that wasn't service, then you would pay for that if you went to the VA.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Jason, did you want to add to that answer at all?
No, it's good. Perfect. Yeah, you're the ear, nose, and throat doctor.
Yeah, sure. Okay, now this is me. Okay, I am now David. Right, I am the
Okay.
subject matter expert on all things VA home loans. So, VA home loan is all talk. That's funny. It's not worth the time and effort. That's also funny. So too many rules, and that's probably true. And they backed out on me with my home for no reason. For no reason, capital letters for some reason. We'll never use them again. My conventional loan has worked better. So I'm going to try to answer this.
Okay.
And I love breaking down questions. That's why I'm reading it like I'm reading it. Okay. So to me, if my home loan knowledge is on par or close to, the question doesn't make sense, right? Because one, VA home loan is essentially, in my eyes, just a program, right? The VA is not the lender. Who is the lender? What does that look like? It allows you to have no money down because you rate the VA home loan benefit. So I don't know who they backed out on you is. And that also leads me to a lot of lenders and realtors, especially combined, when there's a lack of knowledge. Because they don't know VA home loan stuff, they'll push you to conventional and kind of force that down payment. And then it goes back to the seller, right? It's not advantageous for a seller to sell someone only using the VA home loan with no money down, right? Like in my situation, it was not advantageous to my seller at all. And so one, the question doesn't make sense, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Sure, the convention, a normal loan, there's nothing wrong with it. But you have to have, you have to meet the criteria. You have to have money down. The VA home loan is no money down. I can tell you right now, this house that I bought, if I had to put money down, that wasn't happening for me. Okay. And my wife is well established in her career. And I'm telling you, that's still not happening for us. And so that's the advantage. Did I answer that right?
I would say in a way, but let me add.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, hold on. Let me backtrack.
Okay.
It depends. It depends.
We should be doing this for all our live events. That'd be kind of
yeah. What's the answer here? We also have 2 new super chats that we also have to get to. So
yep. Yeah, I'll kind of like tag onto this. So one, obviously the V loan is a benefit that you've earned. And the fact of the matter is there's not many rules to it. There actually, majority of them are in favor of the veteran. And to your point is that VA, the only loans the VA does is Native American direct loans, and they do the specially adapted housing grants, right? Outside of that, you go to a lender. Lenders have overlays, which people kind of confuse and say, well, the VA is the one that denied my loan and they are not letting me do it. And it's not true. It's the lender. The second part to that is the most misunderstood parts of the VA loan is the appraisal process, because the number one thing that realtors think the VA loan is horrible because, it's going to come in under value. Well, if it's not true, because it's actually the loosest requirements for getting comps for an area. If the house is just overpriced then it's overpriced, right? It's based on the market, not what the veteran wants to pay. And in certain markets, veterans will pay the difference because they know they want to be in that area and it's competitive. And to your point, conventional loans, yeah, you could do minimum 3%, 5% down, but you pay private mortgage insurance. With the VA loan, you don't. Especially if you get the 10% disability rating, you don't pay the VA funding fee. Huge advantage for you. And just know, no matter what type of loan you use, or if you're just on the deed of a property, typically, if you qualify for the property tax exemption, you can get it. But you can't qualify for no property taxes with a conventional loan. With the VA loan, you can. Another big thing with the appraisal, and I can like literally talk about hours for this stuff.
Yeah,
but
I'm going to make myself believe I answered this correctly. Okay?
Yeah, no, you're good. No, I mean, it was good. But like, that's the challenge, right? The appraisal process, like you can do escrow holdbacks. Like I'm not an attorney, but you can, and we do it for some clients if it's not a safety issue. So it makes the loan more competitive. Same thing with condos. We do a lot of stuff in Florida. People are like, absolutely, you cannot do this. Like, no, everyone, their lenders say no. Everyone says no. Even big builders say no. And then we still close in them, right? So it's just about who you work with on that. I'm sorry, John, that you had that experience with that, but VA by far is the best. Now, if it's for investment purposes, different story. We can we can talk about that too. But yeah.
All right. Awesome. We have two more. We have a super sticker. Kellyanne, thank you very much. I don't know whose channel that's going to, but again, if it helps one of us, it definitely helps all of us. And I absolutely mean that too. So thank you very much. Jason, would you like to take a VA home loan question? Now, Jason actually knows this.
Yeah, Jason will know.
No, my information is dated. So, you know,
okay.
Butterfly
So
collars and things.
Chat, so we feel obligated to answer it, right? So for my first home, I want to use NACA. I don't even know what that is. Can I then use the VA loan to buy my second home? Jason, what do you got?
I don't know what NACA is. So, David, do you know what NCA, whatever, NACA?
It like the HUD approved. It's like a HUD program is what it looks like. We would need to get, so if it's, yeah, it's like affordable housing programs is what it looks like. So if you use
that's my answer.
Oh, is it? So if you use a program outside of the VA, it doesn't affect your VA loan, right? You have entitlement locked into your property. So if you use the VA loan with a down payment assistance program or some type of community second mortgage, which is basically like a down payment assistance program, or like right now we're doing a deal for somebody buying a house and the government's giving them $40,000 to pay off student debt. Right. So that's kind of a neat program. So if you use your VA loan and you lock in your benefits to that property, then you use your VA loan. If you did some type of HUD loan or special loan, like a NARCA loan, I'm not even sure really how this piece works, but when looking at it, it looks like it's some kind of program. It would be also, if you use an FHA loan, you're not using your VA benefits. If you use a conventional loan, it doesn't tie into your VA benefits. You had a foreclosure with an FHA loan or conventional loan, you still have your full entitlement on your VA home loan. So you can't use the VA loan for a second home. Like, hey, this is my vacation house, but you can use it to buy another primary residence. And you can have multiple VA loans as long as the new loan is your primary residence, and you could turn your old loan into an investment property.
Right.
Well, that was just a good answer,
Thank you, Jason.
Man,
Thank you.
crushed that one.
I'm representing Jason right now.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last one, huge super chat,
Yep.
Billy Hartman. Thank you very much. Billy Hartman, this person I do know. He's one of the squad leaders on my Discord and helps answer questions. You have no reason to do that, Billy. We definitely appreciate it, right? He says, Merry Christmas to you guys and a happiest of New Year. Same to you, and really same to everyone out there.
Yep.
I feel like that's a good segue to, go enjoy Christmas Eve with our families now. But
almost forgot.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. I almost forgot that it's actually Christmas Eve. I'm going to get inside and my wife's going to be like, what the heck? So yeah, I did. Well, I forgot that you were wearing that. I just thought that's your normal clothing, Clay.
You're not.
So, Clay, thank you so much. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. David, thank you so much. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. To everybody out there, hope you have a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. For those that don't celebrate Christmas, Happy Holidays or whatever you celebrate. Stay warm, stay pleasant, and stay safe. Thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate every single one of you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.